Well, he came over in a trade in March of '73, and all of a sudden he comes to a team that's won 2 divisions and a World Series, and he had just the biggest smile on his face and just so happy to be there. And he wore that smile for 2 full years.
Ray always would preach that the catcher's job is to work with the pitching staff and that hitting is a bonus.
First thing I noticed about Ray is his ability to control the pitching staff. So when you go on a run, similar to what the A's went on, to have somebody behind the plate that you can trust in the decision-making of pitches that should be thrown, it's important, and he did that better than anybody.
More or less, whatever Ray called, I usually threw, and he was a smart catcher. He moved the ball around, he would change pitches, and hard-nosed. I mean, he was a rock at the plate. If a guy came in, he wasn't going to move Ray.
He's one of those guys that could, even on my worst days, he would make me think that I was Sandy Koufax, and when you have that ability to psych your pitch out, that in itself is the #1 trait of a catcher, other than being back there and framing the ball well for you.
And then the other side of the coin is Ray was a pretty good hitter. He came up with clutch hits for that organization, and he came up with clutch hits at key times. He was just huge for this organization. His personality, leadership, just huge for the organization.
My brother Dwayne and Ray were teammates in 1976 and 1977. And so in 1976, I'm 13 years old, in Cleveland, visiting my brother, and Ray's locker was just a couple stalls away from my brother's, and that's where I do remember it. And that's where I first met Ray. He was just very imposing, and then when he shook your hand, it became even more imposing. But you also, it was like, he was a big deal. It was Ray Fosse. He had just won a couple world championships.
Ray Fosse was a Hall of Fame type baseball player. If he doesn't have that collision with Pete Rose in the All-Star game, I think that derailed his career. You know, it messed his shoulder up to the point where he was still a good player, but if he hadn't got hurt, he would have went on and gone into the Hall of Fame.
Ray used to come up when he was hurt and sit behind us. We were downstairs broadcasting, and Ray was behind us. And one day, my color announcer was not there, and I said, Ray, why don't you come down and sit with us and talk with us for a while? And when we got through with that game that day, he had been very, very good. And I said, Ray, how'd you like to be a broadcaster? Because you're not going to be able to play anymore, it looks like. And he was very thrilled about it, and he became one of the best analysts I think baseball has had.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I think it helps a color analyst to be a former catcher. I do think it's sort of a special position where you're looking out and you got a lot going on. So the fact that as a former catcher, his position, he had to be in the game every single pitch. And I think that's the way he felt about broadcasting as well.
The thing that I've said about Ray, too, that I think is really important is that he didn't rest on his laurels as a former player. He worked really hard. He kept voluminous notes. He had giant notebooks on every player, every team. He was always down in the field.
To me, he had the good feel of, he knew when to talk to you, and he also knew when to leave you alone. He remembered what it was like to be a player and the everyday grind and the everyday battles that you go through. And I think he had a good feel for, hey, I need to leave the guys alone. And then he also knew when it was time for him to come make an appearance and brighten up everyone's day, because you couldn't help but smile after Ray left.
Quite frankly, I mean, when most broadcast personalities come down, you always think that it's just part of their job. And then after the interview is done, you don't really speak to them very much anymore after that until the next great outing or the next great play. And it wasn't like that with Ray. Ray would greet you every day with that big handshake that almost broke your hand, and he'd have a smile on your face, and he'd always have something encouraging to say, or he'd always say something that would lift you even further than the high that you were already on.
He's genuine. He cares. He doesn't give a damn that you know he's a homer, that you think he's a homer. He'll tell you he's a homer. He doesn't care that the scoreboard tells you it's 210. That guy's hitting 400 because he's wearing an A's uniform. Let me tell you why.
It would make us laugh sometimes, but then you'd be like, well, that's the genius of Ray Fosse, because he's making our players even better than they are in the minds of our viewers. And really, isn't that what you want to do? Don't you want your fans to feel good about the players? And he was just incredible at that. He made the team, if they were not good, he made them better than they were. And if they were really good, then he enjoyed it and he made them great in the eyes of the viewers. Isn't that what it's all about? If you're a team broadcaster, I think it is. And he was perfect at it.